That threw me for a loop there. I really didn't think we were going to get a good song. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, we got to jump on it in a way.
Yeah, no, like the drop in the last 10 seconds, it started
Yeah.
out, I was like, what, we got lullabies in space? Like, do I need to take a nap before this episode? Like, what's happening?
I thought the same thing. And then it dropped. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm kind of into it. But either way, enough getting distracted from the intro music because we never know how that's going to go when we start these things. We did want to start the NBA podcast off with some college basketball because that makes sense. March Madness,
2 straight weeks, 2 straight episodes of it.
2 episodes in a row. March Madness is going on at this point. We're pretty much, down to the Final Four. And what I found interesting is Dominic Foxworth put out a tweet that a lot of people just brushed to the side, which I thought I got what he was trying to say. But at the same time, I don't necessarily agree with him. His tweet was, I'm really watching this garbage game. This is why I hate Cinderellas. Eventually, they ruin a marquee game. Give me basketball powers, please. I don't want to be Googling where X school is in the Elite Eight. And essentially, he was talking about St. Peter's College, University,
College, yeah.
College. The Peacocks, and how they pretty much laid it was a dud game, their last game, as they got eliminated in the Elite Eight. So I get what he was saying because, yes, that Sunday, I think it was, of games, both were duds. Like, it was horrible. It wasn't even fun to watch, neither of them. But until that Elite Eight, dude, cheering for the Peacocks was electric.
Yeah, he's out of his mind, and that's such a bad take. It's not even funny. Like, I get it. It's going to realistically, and St. Peter's is, to me, the story of the tourney by far in terms of Cinderella. I mean, the furthest a 15 seed has ever gone. Shout out to my late grandfather, St. Peter's alum, actually. Jersey City, stand up. Yeah. I love that they're hosting the parade for him in Jersey City. So that, it's really cool to see. It was, it's a fun story. Everybody could rally behind them, but it's like, they beat Kentucky, they beat Purdue, they beat Murray State. Like, what do you want them to, all these heavyweight schools that you supposedly want to see against these other heavyweight schools are losing to St. Peter's? How about they handle their business and then you'll get the marquee matchup that you wanted?
Well, and I think a lot of it too is you get excited for the underdog as like somebody that's kind of impartial to any team of who, like I root for Villanova because I grew up near the school. So I like to root for them, but that's really all I have in the game. So the other games I'm just watching to see, and I'm usually pulling for the upset,
And it's a one-day, like, that's the beauty of a one-game tournament. Like, I don't think if St. Peter's had Kentucky in a 7-game series, yeah, they would probably lose to Kentucky every single time. But that's the beauty of March Madness, is that you can get teams that get hot at the right time of the year, that start shooting the basketball well, and then they can go on a run and make a play like the way they did. In terms of the bracket itself, the Final Four, Duke versus UNC. So obviously you got a great rivalry matchup there. Coach K's last year, so we'll see if he can go out on top. It's crazy because obviously Duke and UNC, I feel like, is the premier college basketball rivalry, and they have never met in the tourney until now, which is wild for all the games that they've had.
And, to it, UNC beat Duke in their tournament right before March Madness started. So there's
Coach K's last game at Cameron. Yep.
So there's a level of that as well at play, which I think is kind of exciting. But the one thing I also, and this isn't basketball related, but I saw this on, I think it was probably Barstool. Honestly, it seems like content they would put out there. But Doug, the guard from St. Peter's, he doesn't like sandwiches. Like, just does, like, blanket statement, doesn't like sandwiches.
Yeah, it's just bizarre because there's so many. Like, was he just not eat bread? Like, I feel like it's not like a bread thing at that point.
It might be that, but I'm just like, what kind of psychopath doesn't like bread? Like, or sandwiches in general? Like, dude, what?
Yeah, I know. It's got to be a bread thing. Like, still not liking bread is kind of wild still, regardless. But it's like, there's so many different types of sandwiches that I feel like it's impossible to not find one version of it that you like, or you like the contents and then you just don't like the bread, which at that point is a completely different thing than saying, I don't like sandwiches.
Yeah,
So that's
but,
wild.
like, does he eat because, like, if he eats a hamburger, then I'm definitely gonna have a problem. Then I'm, like, really confused, you know?
Well, yeah, it was kind of savage too if he's just picking a patty up with his hands like that, or I
Right.
guess rolling up the deli meat and cheese or whatever.
Well,
If he's
well,
just an
those aren't bad.
anti-bread guy.
Yeah, but those aren't bad either, little, like, meat rolls or whatever you
No, you could like what is it, keto diet or whatever, where they don't eat bread.
I
So
think so, probably.
well, you can do the lettuce wrap thing. Like I've been doing the healthy on the lettuce
Yeah.
wrap with a burger sometimes, and it's definitely a good substitute. But again, that's just saying you don't like bread. The other two Final Four, Villanova and Kansas. Obviously, your aforementioned Villanova, by far the closest school to me as well. I mean, yeah, Nova is two national championships in what the last 4 years. Like I know
Mm.
they had the one in the '80s, the big upset against Georgetown, but yeah, this is by far the best time it could be to be a Villanova fan. And then, obviously Kansas is here all the time as well. So, more of your traditional powerhouses. UNC is the lowest seed at 8. Duke and Nova are twos. Kansas, the only one seed left. I got to be honest. My only other take about the tournament is that I will literally never pick Gonzaga to win anything in a bracket ever again. And I should have known better because Gonzaga, and like, no offense to Gonzaga fans, but here it comes. Like, y'all are the biggest frauds of all time. I've never seen something more consistent with Gonzaga just flopping on their face in every single tournament. Anytime there's expectations, they always come up short. And like, look, I know they went to the national championship the year before, lost to Baylor, but it's just I am never. And yes, I did pick them to win the title this year. I'm never picking Gonzaga to win anything ever again. And I get burned on it all the time. I know better than this. And somehow try to talk myself into Gonzaga is finally going to break through. Look, I'm fully in the I got to believe it to see it with Gonzaga from now on.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, man. When it was happening, when you, like, started to feel like, "Oh, they're not gonna win this game, it's not gonna happen," you're like everyone just started being like, "This is always how it goes with them," and I'm like, "Oh, these poor guys."
Always. They got pushed by Georgia State in the first round, and that's when I knew, like, realistically, and again, they ended up beating Georgia State by 21 points, but it's like Georgia State was hanging until the 10-minute mark pretty much.
Mhm.
Memphis was close, but Memphis is a
Yo,
good squad.
and I'll tell you what, last night, so as of recording this on the 28th, my wife and I, Nicole and I watched, UConn versus NC State women's March Madness. That
Yeah,
game was phenomenal. Double
crazy.
overtime. I wanted NC State to get it so bad. There were a few times where I was like, "What are you doing?" But it happens.
Yeah, women's Final Four is really stacked. They got a lot of powerhouses there as well. Should be a lot of fun. That game was great. Like you said, I
Oh,
think I've only seen probably 2 games in the women's tournament, but that like you said, that happened to be
the
one of them. It was
the only
phenomenal.
reason that was on is I got home early, because one of our bosses was leaving, so we had, like, a goodbye party, and I went home and, you get home, you had a few drinks, you get home, you're like, "Alright, I'm just gonna take a nap until, my wife gets home." So I fell asleep with ESPN on, and when I woke up, it was the game, and I was like, "Oh, whatever, I'll leave it on while I'm cooking dinner." And then next thing you know, I'm like, "Oh, damn, they're going into overtime." And then I'm like, "Oh, damn, this is crazy." So,
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and significantly, like you said, that the women's Elite Eight was way better than the guys. The guys' games were kind of whack all around. I mean, Kansas destroyed Miami. Duke pretty much handled Arkansas. Nova beat Houston by 6. So hopefully the Final Four games are better, like you said. But it's been an entertaining tournament. And again, shout out to St. Peter's, the big story of the tournament. They're going to have a parade later this week. So if you're in Jersey City, definitely go out and support that. That's pretty cool.
yeah.
Welcome everybody to the Driving Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rafe. Hughes joining me as always, my co-host Justin Kuzart.
I already read a tweet, so, well, we won't read another one. Just follow us on YouTube.
Okay, there you go. Follow us on YouTube. What subscriber are we looking for right now? You got that
Still
up?
35. Yeah, still
Still
35. I
30.
think we were looking for 35 last episode.
All right, claim Kevin Durant. Come on, seriously, that's a really good one. Easy money snipers for the taking. 34, like we said, a super loaded number as well. Same with 33. Listen to the podcast anywhere you can find a podcast. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the show. If you're not an Apple user, Stitcher, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Spotify, TuneIn, Amazon Music, anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find us. And now, a word from our sponsors.
So we have, not very long, 13 days until the play-in tournament starts. April 16th is when the actual NBA playoffs start. It's worth mentioning as of recording this right now, Kevin and I are sweating a little bit. The Sixers and Bucks are playing, and that is a hugely, I guess that is a word, important game for what's happening right now because, well, the Bucks and 76ers have the exact same record. And I believe they are tied on the season in terms of how a tiebreaker would work, if I have that correctly. So, very important game. But to bring it or break it down, the Heat are 2 games ahead of the 76ers and the Bucks. And then the Celtics are technically a game ahead, but they've played more. So they also have another loss, which is very confusing when you look at it. So, but those are your top 4 in the East, and I don't think that's changing. And I think all 3 of them have a real legitimate argument to be number 1 in the East. But then my counter argument is looking at the bottom, do you want to be number 1 in the East?
Well, so there's so many the East standings. There are so many different things in play right now, and that
Yeah,
really is the beauty. So, I mean, when you look at the East, the top 10 is solidified.
yeah.
Nobody else is going to jump. I mean, the Pacers, Pistons, and Magic have been mathematically eliminated. The Wizards and the Knicks are respectively 5.5 and 4.5 back from the Hawks for that last spot at 10. So you're pretty much locked in there. Atlanta, Charlotte, and Brooklyn, pending a crazy run or collapse from either Cleveland, Toronto, or Chicago, are all going to be in the play in. At
Mhm.
that point, it's just more about who gets the 7-8 game, who gets the 9 and 10. And then, like you said, for 5, 6, and 7, it's going to be that 3-way battle between Chicago, Toronto, and Cleveland for who can avoid the play in game altogether. And then the 4-way battle up top. The first thing we want to mention, probably the biggest news in terms of the top, is Rob Williams' meniscus tear. He's going to be out a couple weeks minimum, having surgery on it. But this is a massive loss for the Celtics, who, I mean, he's been one of, if not the best defensive center probably in the league
The
this season.
the Ringer put out an amazing article about what the Celtics were doing with him and how they changed it halfway through the season, and essentially how he was a big part of how they turned it around. Um, Essentially, they had him switch on every pick and roll was essentially the kind of how the article broke down, and they also said they were just in any way that he was involved defensively, the goal was to keep him in the paint to contest shots or in the paint enough that he can step out on a corner 3 and try to alter that shot. And to that, he forced opponents to only shoot 35.5% when he was, in the perimeter of their shot, which is the best mark in the league. I think someone actually pointed out that it's like the best in the last few years. Um, I think Thibault had the best one in 2021, and Giannis had it in 2019, 2020. And Thibault obviously made the all defensive team that year, and Giannis won defensive player of the year that year. So,
Oh,
that
yeah.
puts it in perspective.
Yeah, and Rob Williams should be a lock for the all defensive first team, in my opinion. But like you said, so I saw a lot of doom and gloom from Celtics fans right away. And look, it's understandable. I mean, this is a tremendous loss. In my opinion, it will probably keep them away from the number 1 seed. They've got 47 wins right now, which is only 1 behind Miami. They're in 4th in terms of the standings,
As a win percentage.
because Miami or I should say Philly and Milwaukee have games in hand. But they have depth. I mean, the Daniel Tice addition at the deadline, getting him back, I think is huge here. He's going to have to play a lot of these minutes. And then they've got Al Horford. Like between those two, Horford was already getting minutes. So Tice is just going to have to step up and play a lot of those minutes where they're missing Rob Williams. They need to survive a first round playoff series. Now, in the second round, that's where it could start to get a little tough because I think the
Well,
Celtics are going to beat whoever they play in the first round unless they happen to get Brooklyn. But if they fall out of the 1 or 2 seed, they're probably not going to get Brooklyn. They'll avoid Brooklyn just by the way of the standings. So that would be tremendous for them in the first round because the way that, Chicago is falling, the way Cleveland's dealing with injuries of their own. Evan Mobley spraining his ankle the other night. He's going to miss a game on Wednesday at the minimum. Obviously, Jared Allen's still out as well.
mhm.
But yeah, this is a big loss for the Celtics. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He's a massive part of the rotation. Obviously, the way they've been playing recently, both on the defensive and offensive end, with Tatum seemingly taking to his game to even another level, with Jaylen Brown, with Marcus Smart playing some of the best basketball of his career, with Al Horford looking rejuvenated. Like, there's still a lot of reasons to like this Celtics team. And because it's a meniscus and not obviously a ACL or an MCL, which would knock him out for significantly longer. Like you could get him back here sooner than later. You just need to stay afloat, and that's going to be the name of the game for the Celtics. I do think this probably knocks them out of one, like I said, but
Mhm.
I'm confident in their abilities to still win a first round playoff series. It's just when you run into that second round, if you don't have Rob Williams, I may not like them as much against a Miami, against a Milwaukee, against a Philly, against a Brooklyn, or whoever.
Yeah, because there was talk, I mean, of, with Williams, he can if you're up against, if you're up against the Bucks, like, you can make sure he's with Giannis. If Giannis comes in the paint, then you have an option there, and same with Joel you know, so I think there's an argument to be made there as well, and so the only thing we can really say there is let's just see what the timeline is for his return, you know?
Yeah,
We don't know.
the timeline for the Time Lord.
Literally. So, we'll see where that goes. But at the same time, if you're the Celtics, honestly, staying in that four spot doesn't really suck. I,
No, I don't want to root for it, but like, and again, I don't think you want to angle your matchups. I think that that can fail epically if you
sure,
try
sure.
to angle who you want to play. And I
Well,
think rhythm is important going
if
into
the
the
team,
playoffs.
if the team finds out that you're doing that, there's some extra motivation there. You don't want to give anybody some extra motivation in the NBA, but like the Heat, we talked about how they're faltering, right? They're 4-6 in their last 10, and like in the back of my mind is like they're probably like, hey, let's just make sure we don't get the one seed. We don't want to go up against the Nets potentially.
Yeah, I think it is tough because it is. There's never been a silver bullet, almost, if you will, the way that Brooklyn is. Like you could very well be the number one or the number two seed and get rewarded with an awesome season with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in the first round, who seem to be averaging 80 points each a game these days, just the way they've been
Well,
unstoppable.
and
Um, but
Kyrie,
it's also
Kyrie's
crazy because Brooklyn could flame out. Like Brooklyn could still very well flame out. Now the good news for them is that Toronto's in six right now. That's the
yeah,
one place Kyrie can't play. Obviously, the vaccine mandate has been lifted. Kyrie can play at Barclays again, which is huge for them. But the issue is going to be, if Toronto drops back in, Kyrie still can't play in Canada. If it's Cleveland and Charlotte, Atlanta, obviously he's good to go. So that's worth watching as well in terms of
selfishly,
the to 6 and 7.
selfishly from like a Sixers fan standpoint, I would prefer that because that's probably the best chance of the Nets getting bounced before they have to play a potential Sixers matchup in any way that the thing might line up.
Yeah, I think any fan of a team that's top four in the East right now should want Brooklyn to slip behind Charlotte or Atlanta somehow, be in that 8-9 game, and then get bounced, or be at the risk of being bounced, even if they
Yeah,
win. Or if they're in the 9-10 game, even if they win that, run the risk of still being bounced. Now, full disclosure, I don't think Brooklyn is getting bounced in the play-in game. Like, I think they're
no.
going to be 7 or 8. The question is which one of those. And honestly, it does. It depends to me. Like my prediction is going to be radically different if they play Toronto without Kyrie. I probably would take Toronto in that game, as crazy as that sounds, with Kevin
Do
Durant on the
you?
floor. Where if Kyrie's on the floor, I'm definitely taking Brooklyn against anybody.
Yeah, and I mean, Kyrie struggled a little bit at his first, quote unquote home game. Um, but I think that might have just been some like jitters and getting back into it and that home crowd feeling a little bit. I put this tweet out the other day. I was like, Kyrie really like successfully completed the best load management season of all time. Like he really did. Dude played half the games, not even.
Well, that's why when he had 60 the other week, where it was insane to me that he didn't go for 80. Like I know they're playing for June, but come on, Kyrie hasn't played half the season
Yeah.
just off the vaccine thing. Like, let the man try to break some records or something. But yeah, I mean that's the theme of the East. Nobody wants Brooklyn in the first round. Now the
Hmm.
interesting thing is Miami. Now Miami's 4-6 in their last 10, including in those losses, a loss to the Warriors, who are also free falling right now without Steph Curry, and a loss to the Sixers without Harden and Embiid.
Well, and
A terrible loss to the Knicks the other night too. They were up, I think, what was it, 14 going into the fourth quarter? They ended up losing that game by double digits. Uh, Most obviously the cap to all this, and the moment that got all the attention, was Jimmy Butler and Spo going at it on the
yeah,
sideline, and then in turn Udonis Haslam, of course, stepping in and going as well. Like the Heat have got fourth quarter issues. It's been a problem the whole season. Now their bench has been just smoking teams, and that's the thing. Is so when their bench has been winning by such a margin, but it's a valid concern at the end of games. And I mean, I don't know. I'm alarmed that Jimmy Butler is yelling at Eric Spoelstra. I mean, that's Spo. That's weird in Miami that somebody
Well,
is
and
yelling at him. Because Spo to me is one of the best coaches in the NBA, a guy who's won multiple championships, has taken the Heat to the finals recently with one Jimmy Butler. They got to figure it out quick because they're trending in the wrong direction fast. And all of a sudden, a team that it felt like kind of nobody wanted to play with their depth is looking like somebody they might want in the second round. If you want to angle at that 4 seed, if Miami ends up being one.
well, and there was a lot of question. Like when I saw it, it almost looked like Jimmy was yelling at well, wasn't yelling at Spo, and I was trying to figure out what, like, you know what I mean? Like we're never gonna know what actually happened, and maybe they'll tell us, but like I haven't seen it yet as to what led to that. But it's a horrible look, especially when your coach is throwing the clipboard on the ground at you, and it's getting like, that went on for a really long time. Um, so yeah, I agree. It's not a great look, but at the end of the day, when the playoffs get there, I kind of can see everything just like, it's like, hey, let's lock it in. Let's just finish this season type deal. If there is burnt bridges or whatever it is, it's like, let's just finish it out. Let's get it done. There's still the top seed in the East right now and have a chance to still be that in, what is it, 2 weeks? So I'm not totally worried about them. I think it does raise some concern as to what the hell led to that. And I think you also have to take it a little bit with a grain of salt because Jimmy Butler, we all know, is a very passionate basketball player, you know?
Well, he's got to shoot the basketball more too.
Yeah.
That's the other reality. Is like Jimmy Butler is not taking 3 pointers this year. Essentially, he's been shooting from 15 feet, and we know he's elite at that. Like Jimmy
Yeah.
has made his bread and butter off that. But he's got to, teams are guarding their shooters. Miami's, what their strength is Duncan Robinson flying all over the floor and splashing everything. It's Tyler Hero hitting threes. Like teams' best defenders are not guarding Jimmy Butler anymore, and I think that's a massive problem for them come playoff time. Again, get these out of the way now. They did bounce back and beat Sacramento by 23 points the other night
Yeah.
to end that 4-game losing streak. They've got a couple big ones in terms of the standings, but the rest of their schedule isn't terribly difficult. They've got the Celtics tomorrow, the 30th. We're recording this on the 29th. So that's obviously a huge one in terms of standings
Yeah.
purposes. Boston can, catch up very fast. They've got Chicago on the second, and they've got Toronto in a back-to-back on the
Mm.
second and third. Again, Toronto's playing great right now, and that's without Fred VanVleet, so super impressive. Chicago going the wrong direction, so to me, if you're Miami, you got to get that one. And they've got Charlotte, Atlanta, and Orlando to end the season. All winnable games. They control their own destiny. I think they do still finish with the number one seed. Um, but they got to figure out this fourth quarter thing.
Yeah.
And I am a little more worried about their chemistry. Like it was very uncharacteristic. And especially I'm surprised that it's with Jimmy Butler because this is the tailor-made situation for Jimmy Butler. Like this is what he left, Philly for. Obviously it was a lot more acrimonious of an ending in Minnesota, but he left Philly on his own to go be a free agent and go specifically to Miami. Like this was the spot he chose. This is the culture he wanted to be in, the coach he wanted to play for. And the Miami culture is proven. Like that's the thing.
Mhm.
They've won 3 titles. They've been successful for, going on 20 years now
Well,
as an organization in a row. If Jimmy for some reason flames out here, it's way more alarming than it is in other places when he's left.
and I would say, and I agree with you with the culture, but I think there could be a counter argument to saying like the personnel that was there when they won, it's not the same now, so things have changed at some point in there, you would imagine, other than Spoelstra, right? So he's still there, but I feel like there could be some difference, when they were winning the finals, it was Wade and LeBron and Bosh.
Yeah, but they were just there a couple years ago with the core of this team, with Jimmy, with Bam, with Hero.
Yeah,
Like they've all
that's
got
true.
that
That's
experience.
true.
They've been
Yeah.
successful recently. Um, it's surprising. Now, again, I'm not about to sell all my Heat stock either. Like I said, the Heat are one of these teams that can win the
Jimmy
Eastern Conference.
Jimmy just didn't have enough coffee that game. We're chalking it up to that.
Yeah, I hope so because he didn't have enough coffee for the whole week apparently. But
Yeah.
no, they need him. They need him to be better come playoff time. Again, I think shooting the basketball will help a lot.
And and
Um,
and again, if they slip to the 2 or the 3, depending on where it lands up, I don't think it's necessarily the worst thing because you might be able to avoid the Nets at least in the first round.
No, I mean, and that's kind of because it's that 2-3 dance with the Sixers and Milwaukee right
Mhm.
now. They have identical records, and like we said, they're playing as we speak. Well, actually, probably it'll be over by the time we're done recording, so we'll have a little more clarity there. Um,
And that one's really important because, like I was saying, they're tied on if I remember this correctly, they're tied on the season, so the winner of this would have a tiebreaker if it somehow came down to that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
the home court advantage will
Yeah.
matter, and like you said, it all just depends where Brooklyn ends up. I mean, you could very well be that 2. That 1 is a lot more valuable if Brooklyn's not the 8. If Brooklyn is the 7, then that's potentially a nightmare if you're in that 2 spot.
Yep.
And depending where it's just about how many good teams you have to play. I think realistically, Toronto and Brooklyn are the teams that will challenge these top 4 in the first round. I don't
Yeah.
think Cleveland or Chicago is going to win a first round series. Like I think
We
whoever
have
gets
yeah.
whichever one of those 2 teams from that top 4 play uh, Cleveland and Toronto or Cleveland and Chicago will win. And at that point, you'll have to play one of these more difficult teams, but it won't be until the second round. If you're playing Brooklyn in the first round, like you're getting after it right away.
Yeah.
Like that's in some cases, a conference finals level matchup.
Yeah.
And then the same sort of deal, even with Toronto. Like Toronto's playing pretty well right now. I'm not as scared, obviously, of Toronto as I would be of Brooklyn when they employ one Kevin Durant and one Kyrie Irving.
I get it. But
But Toronto's
still
playing good
very
basketball right now.
right, like, still very not confident in a matchup against them. Like, I still wouldn't feel great about it. But I get what you're saying, they don't have the star of Kevin Durant or Kyrie like that. So,
Well, and Toronto could very well get all the way up to, Toronto and Chicago. Toronto could very well be 5, and
mhm,
then in that case, one of these good teams will have them in the first round. And you could see Chicago honestly falling all the way down to the play-in. Evan Mobley getting that ankle injury stinks against Orlando the other night, especially in terms of just the depth. Then with the Jared Allen injury, you can't afford to lose another big like that.
yeah.
I'm pulling up their respective schedules as we speak. But I guess I just like I have the least faith in Chicago. They're beating Washington right now. That game is actually going on as we're
For
recording.
as a Sixers fan, I think what best case scenario is the Raptors win enough to move up to 5, and then you have Bulls or Cavs somewhere in that realm of landing a first round series against them.
I think if from a Sixers perspective, and this is going to bite me in the rear end for saying this out
Oh,
loud,
yeah.
from a Sixers perspective, I'd love for them to be 4 and then play Chicago or Cleveland in the first round and then
Yeah,
get Miami in the second. And then, you avoid Brooklyn slash one of Milwaukee or Boston. And then another
yeah,
one of them gets knocked out in the second round. I think that would be their easiest path to the finals. I don't think it's necessarily going to work that way.
yeah,
Um, and I think there are other teams who would like those same matchups. Like I think that kind of applies for Milwaukee as well and for Miami. So the Raptors have Minnesota, Orlando, Miami, Atlanta, Philly, Houston, and New York.
mm,
The Bulls have the Wizards, who they're playing now. Again, they're up as we speak. They've got the Clippers, they've got the Heat, they've got the Bucks, they've got Boston, they've got Charlotte, and they've got Minnesota. So the Bulls are going to have a tough go of it. They've got the,
yeah,
the worst to me by far. Cleveland's got Dallas, Atlanta, New York, Philly, Orlando, Brooklyn, and Milwaukee. Um, so to me, Toronto's in the best position. I think Toronto has the softest of those schedules. Um, if they keep winning, they could be all the way up to 5, which is a tremendous success for Toronto. I think this was a quote unquote rebuilding year. To see how well Siakam is playing right now, to see how well Scotty Barnes looks already. There's a lot to be excited about in Toronto, and I think
yeah,
whoever gets them in the first round is they're going to have fits with them,
yeah.
no doubt about it. Chicago, I do think is trending the wrong way. I hate to say it, and not getting Lonzo Ball back.
Well, and that's
Zach
what I was
Levine's knee is beat up. Like
that's
DeRozan just
what
had to take on a massive load the whole year.
it's just finally catching up with him, but it really is. When you look at the season for the Bulls, it has been a roller coaster as it started on the ground floor. We didn't really know what to expect, and then all of a sudden, it's like, oh my god, they're the best team in the East, and here we are, we're rolling, and now we're on that downslope of that roller coaster right now a little bit. where things seem to be getting back to the norm in a way of what we thought maybe the Bulls would have, this season.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's kind of where I'm at as well. Is I think the Bulls end up being, where we projected them to be. I thought the Bulls are a playoff team for sure. And again, it stinks because if they were fully healthy, I think they would be a little bit better than they are
Yeah.
now. I mean, listen, Lonzo Ball is massive. They haven't had Patrick Williams most of the season. They're getting him back now late, which could have some impact here. But no, I think they're exactly who kind of we thought they are. There were, I before the beginning of the season, I think I projected them to be in that 5 to 8 range. That looks
Mhm.
like that's where they're going to end up. And I think they're probably going to lose the playoff series, but they've taken some steps this year. You've got a lot to be excited about, and hopefully you come back next year more healthy. But this is, they spent the money to get in the playoffs and have a shot at this. I think they have. This has been the
Yeah.
best Bulls team since
And
probably the beginning of the early 2010s.
and my last little comment, at least for the East, I did see this. The Cavs is their first winning season since LeBron, so that's pretty cool too to see, them lock that in.
Yeah, it's a tremendous success for the Cavs too, no matter what. And I know the Cavs have kind of struggled here the last month and a half, even before the injuries a little bit. But
Yeah.
yeah, to see them rejuvenated, getting contributions from the vets. It's good to see Kevin Love playing again and playing meaningful basketball. They haven't had Colin Sexton the whole season. Like there's a lot to be excited about in Cleveland going forward. They are one of those teams who's kind of playing with house money right now. Like I know it would be a
Mhm.
little bit of a bummer given how well they were playing at one point to not do much in the playoffs, but I think Cleveland is going to get a lot better here in the next few years as well. So
Yeah. As
plenty to
long
be
as
excited
as
about.
long as nobody, posterizes Kevin Love like LeBron did, we should be good.
Yeah, bro, that was great. That was friend on friend violence. Like
That
they're
was
buds finally now. I know
messed
back in
up.
like season 3 or season 4 of the podcast, there was that little, if are they friends, are they enemies
Yeah.
dynamic. But
Well,
I love the post game
and
banter afterwards
remember
too.
and remember we talked about it. We're like, Kevin Love's gonna be the player that has to take that, like, Chris Bosh esque step where it doesn't feel like he's in the spotlight because there's 3 of them, you know what I mean? And I remember talking about that, and it's ended up, like, it kinda seems like that's what he had to do, and here we are.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, who's balling, who's falling? Our NBA version of the stock market. We always like to start with the good before the bad. Balling for me this week is Jose Alvarado. Pelicans signing him to a 4-year, $6.5 million two-way contract. Alvarado has been getting 20 minutes a game recently. Has really kind of been a nice surprise for them. I love, I love that compilation that I forget who posted it, and I feel bad not giving them credit, but I love that compilation of him just like hanging out on the sidelines and teams losing track of him and just flying it out of nowhere to cause a turnover or get a steal.
Mhm.
Good for Jose as Pelicans continue to move towards the playing games themselves, and we'll talk about the West here in a little bit as well. Getting the deal, getting some solid play solidified.
Yeah, been playing well too. Just the other night on the 26th, had a 23-point game against the Spurs. Had a 15-point game against the Bulls. So yeah, awesome to see, somebody making their money. For balling for me is the Clippers finally getting Paul George back. He is set to play tonight as of recording this, barring like some setback in the warm-ups, but it'll be his first game since December. He's missed 43 games over this injury. Um, they've also been without Kawhi Leonard all season, which I still think is amazing to think about, where they are and what they're doing without both of their stars. Essentially, you almost think you know, they wouldn't even be close to an eighth seed at this point, but here they are. Um, so him coming back to try to lock in this playing tournament's awesome. Obviously would be a huge boost for him. He was averaging 24.7 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists before the injury. So if he can even provide a little bit of that, I think that would be huge for the Clippers, which again would then make the eighth seed in the West more dangerous than an eighth seed probably should be.
Well, and I think that's the biggest thing is it can shake up that playing game real
Yeah.
fast. If you're Minnesota, a team that would I think pretty convincingly beat the Clippers without Paul George. now all of a sudden you throw him into the lineup. Like, I don't think anybody's going to jump off a cliff and say the Clippers are suddenly contenders, but they're much more difficult than you'd like to play in the first round, ideally.
Sure.
Credit to Ty Lue and credit to their depth all season long for keeping them afloat. I mean, they're convincingly the 8th seed. It's not like they're just hanging out here. They've got 4 games on the Pelicans right now, 4.5 on the Lakers. But yeah, I don't think anyone realistically was going to pick the Clippers to do much of anything outside of the play-in, assuming they got through. And I think without Paul George, I think there are people that could maybe even see them losing to the Pelicans, given how well they're playing right now. Obviously, a huge boost for them. I got to be honest, I'm semi-surprised because it's been so long. And I think it's been a little longer than projected when he first went out with the elbow injury. It kind
Yeah.
of felt like they would shut him down for the rest of the year, since that's obviously what they're doing with Kawhi, and just wait, come back next year with all this depth and make a real run at it to potentially win the title.
Yeah.
But it'll be good to see Paul George back on the floor. And like we said, right in time for the playoffs.
Well,
So
and get some of the younger guys a little more playoff experience, get that vibe, get that experience so that maybe you are ready to do a run for it next year. I will say too, for the Pelicans, by the way, I saw that Zion is now traveling with the team for the road games, so that's probably a good sign of things to come. We saw that video of him dunking. Take that for what it is. So, um, maybe that's a sign he's coming back too. So we might get a really cool play-in style game tournament thing, at least in the West. If he does come back and they try to make a push for it as well from the Pelicans standpoint.
Well, it's just with Zion at this point, it's good to see him be in the headlines for doing something on the basketball court.
Right, right.
We want Zion playing. I don't think he's going to play this season, but I think,
We'll
yeah, the
see.
fact that he's in the
Yeah.
Pelicans facility after reports of being disgruntled, the fact that he's back there, I think he's got to be encouraged by what the team has done, again, with Brandon Ingram, with CJ McCollum, how that trade is kind of shaking it up there a little bit. And it's like, look, the guys are out here fighting every night. They get into a play-in game, they may cause some havoc a little bit. Imagine adding a healthy Zion Williamson to the lineup. All of a sudden, that New Orleans team looks a lot more potent for next year. So
Yep.
it's good to see all around. Fallen for me this week is Miles Turner, officially shut down for the rest of the season. He's really been dealing with like a myriad of injuries all season long. The Pacers, like I said, mathematically eliminated. So, not really
What's
a
the
big deal.
point?
Get Miles Turner
Right.
healthy. Yeah, get him back for next year. You kind of solved, the question with the Pacers the past few years has been that Sabonis or Miles Turner question. You solved it when you dealt Sabonis to Sacramento. So,
Yep.
you get Miles Turner. He's a certified piece. You see what you got with Halliburton and some of these other guys. And, hopefully it goes better than it did this year, because I think it was a
Yeah.
pretty disappointing season all around for Indy.
I would say disappointing, but revamp for next year. No reason to risk Turner getting hurt. Let him go play with his Legos, and we'll get it ramped up for next year. Like that's
Yeah, no
that's just
doubt
how
about
it
it.
is. All right. So my fallen. Here's a little story time for fallen here. Uh, for anybody that doesn't know, Lonzo Ball bought this really really nice Lamborghini car.
Uh huh.
And, earlier this week, someone posted a Snapchat video where they were mooning the car while it was parked. So they were, like, next to it, mooning it, and the caption on the Snapchat said, like, "F LaMelo Ball," or something like that. So then, of course, because it's the internet, someone took a screenshot and put it on Twitter and then added LaMelo Ball and said, "Bruh, isn't this your car?" Once LaMelo Ball saw it, he responded and threatened to have the man beat up. He said that, what did he say? He says, what did he say? Someone needs to handle this lightweight out here. And then quickly deleted the tweet because you can't do that. But because it's the internet, people still got their screenshots. So one, mooning a car is like so funny that it's dumb. And then being offended at the fact that someone mooned your car is even dumber than being offended. So it's just like a whole level of what are we doing?
Well, I'm surprised he cared after it was on the internet, so you can catch it live. But it's like, yo, just stop being idiots. Like, that's what it all comes down to. Is it's like, somebody is going to do something. Like, if he was in the car and somebody ran up on him like that, like, he's liable to beat your ass, and you kind of
Mhm.
deserve it. Or no, forget kind of deserve it. Like, you deserve it a little bit at that
Yeah.
point. If you're going out of your way to, cause a scene and basically harass these guys, and that's where I think fans need to just learn the limits sometimes.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're LaMelo Ball, it's like, yeah, fam, you got to let that go. Like people are going to clap at you on
You
social
can't
media all the time.
you can't tweet that you want someone to handle it, like, because someone's an idiot enough to do it. That's the problem I have with it.
Well, yeah, and it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, you get them in person though,
Oh, yeah.
things
Then
are
it's
going
a
to
problem.
happen.
So,
People just got
yeah.
to stop being idiots for on social media. But I think we're well past that at this point.
I completely agree. So taking it to the West, I know we haven't talked about the West. It's worth mentioning that the Suns have 61 wins and the next highest is 53. It's like, holy cow, man. They have 60 and there isn't a team in the East that has 50.
Yeah, I didn't want to talk about it because we kind of harped on the Suns last, or not harped on them, but we talked about the Suns last episode. Who,
But
oh by the
still,
way, now
man.
have Chris Paul back too. But yeah, no one's
Yeah.
at. I mean, Memphis is the only other team at 50 wins. Phoenix is at 61. They are by far the best team in the NBA. And as far as I'm concerned, as well as anybody in the East is playing, or as well as anybody in the West is playing, the title runs through
Oh,
them if they are
now
fully healthy.
okay. At the risk of sounding like an idiot, I'm gonna ask this question.
Uh huh.
If the Suns flame out, no pun intended, um, you know, say it's the second round, whatever, something catastrophic happens and they don't win, do we put them in that Gonzaga category of like, I'm no longer going to trust them to be able to do it? I know it's only
No,
been 2
not.
seasons, but it's like because Chris Paul's there and he's got that vibe kind of.
I think it'd be more with Chris Paul than it would be with the
Yeah,
Suns. I mean, I guess you could say the Suns because they didn't win with 7 seconds or less. But I mean, they were, they had a while where they weren't
yeah,
doing much of anything. But
yeah.
no, I mean, if that happens, then yeah, I think it's a tremendous disappointment. I don't see that happening. I think the only team in the West that's going to push them is Memphis. Golden State's got to get healthy. At the end
If
of the day,
Curry,
Golden
yeah,
State's
what
got to get healthy.
do we know where? Well, because I know Wiseman's for sure not coming back.
Yeah,
They made
Wiseman's
that.
done for the year.
Yeah, that he's done for the year. I didn't hear any update on Curry's injury.
Couple weeks is just basically what they were saying. I mean, I don't think there's a firm date for it. They're hoping the
Yeah,
beginning of the playoffs, but the problem is obviously they're plummeting right now. I mean, they've lost 3 in a row. They're 4-6 in their last 10. They've only got a game and a half up on Dallas and 2.5 up on Utah for 4 and 5 respectively. Uh, yeah, they're running the risk here of sliding fast. I mean, the Grizzlies just put a beating on them the other night. Um, and it sure looks like if Golden State were to, I mean, to be quite honest, if Steph Curry's not healthy, this Golden State team to me is losing in the first round. Like I
yeah.
think Denver,
Same.
Utah, Dallas, whoever it would be, even if Minnesota climbs up to 6, like I think they would beat Golden State in the first round if Steph's not fully healthy. It's crazy because the only chance this team has is if Steph Curry and Draymond Green are firing on all cylinders. Now, like they look great when those two are healthy. And that's what we were talking about a couple weeks ago is they finally got those two and Clay back on the floor for the first time. They're going to get Iguodala back as well, but uh, yeah, right now
But
it's pretty
Iguodala is
hard to
gonna
be
give
encouraged.
Iguodala is just gonna give the Grizzlies a little extra motivation if they end up playing him, you know?
The Grizzlies aren't scared of him. That's the thing.
I
They
know.
took that personally. Everyone on that team took that to heart. So that's the thing with the Warriors is like they want him. They want to beat the hell out of the
That's
Warriors.
what I mean, yeah.
Um, But I think, I mean, in terms of the West, the intriguing parts are at the bottom. Like we know Phoenix is going to win or is going to be number one and probably finish with the best record in the NBA.
Mhm.
Memphis with Golden State falling like this is a lock for two at this point. I mean, they would really have to go under because even on 4, like for Dallas, they've got 6.5 games up on Dallas right now. Um, so Dallas, Utah, and Denver are really you got to see where they all pan out between 4, 5, and 6, and then Minnesota. I mean, Minnesota is 2 back of Denver right now. You want to see if they can get out of the play-in game down here or down the stretch, I should say. The Clippers are going to be 8. And then to me, the last part to watch is 9, 10, and 11. Like it's not like the East where, yeah, Sacramento and Portland are basically done at this point. OKC and Houston are mathematically eliminated.
Yeah.
But the Spurs are only a half game back of the Lakers. The Lakers are getting absolutely curb stomped by Dallas right now.
And
Guys,
I'm
they got to
pretty
stop putting. I know they pre-schedule it, but like, good lord, get the Lakers are on TNT right now against Dallas.
well,
They're getting absolutely destroyed, and it's like, can we get
and
them off national television?
I saw before the game started, LeBron was ruled out too, so it's not
Yeah,
even like you're getting the best of the Lakers, which is, rough. Um, so from like, just looking at the potential matchups from a star standpoint, what stars do you want to see faced off in the West against each other? Like, I think it would be really cool to see Luca go against Devin Booker, right? Like I think that would be a
Yeah.
really fun matchup to see. Um, Jokic versus Gobert, like something like that kind of star power type games. Like, is there a specific one that you're like, we need to see this happen?
I'd love to see. Man, it's tough because I wish Denver was at full strength, and I do love that Jokic Gobert matchup potentially. But I kind of want to see this Dallas Utah 4-5 matchup if it breaks
Yeah.
that way. I
Luca
want to
versus
see Donovan
Donovan.
Mitchell versus Luca. Like they can both be just
I feel
obviously have
like
massive scoring performances.
what's weird is I kind of feel like I want to see Luca go up against almost you could almost argue like 4 or 5 of these teams. Like I would want to see him go up against Ja. I'd want to see him go up against Devin Booker. I want to see, like
Yeah,
I think that would just work really well and be a really fun matchup. And I don't know why I'm just honed in on Luca like that, but it just seems to be, I guess, playing out that way.
yeah. I mean, Utah's not playing as great recently, so I think that's why they. I mean, they're 4-6 in their last
Yeah.
10. They've lost 4 in a row as of recording this. They do play the Clippers later tonight, like we said, against Paul George. So they'll be looking to break that slump. Um, I mean, Luca's just the guy. I think it's what it comes down to. Is like Luca's the top 10 talent there
Yeah.
on those teams. Jokic is too, but we know just Jokic is. Jamal Murray doesn't look like he's coming back. If he does, he's going to be super limited. Michael Porter, I don't think is going to play the rest of the season. So, as dangerous as Denver can be, I think there's a clear limit to it where I would want to see Luca or Donovan Mitchell play Phoenix in that second round, like you said, get that matchup against Booker. And I just want to see the Warriors and the Grizzlies play in the second round because they just flat out don't like each other. So, at that point,
Mhm.
I'm going for the rivalry. And I mean, that's probably I see the top of the West, or that's what I'd like to see the most. If LeBron's not healthy, I don't want the Lakers in the play-in. Like, just put the Spurs in the play-in. And it's not even like the Spurs are super fun to watch, but I'm so over watching this Lakers team. Anthony Davis clearly isn't any or not 100%. It doesn't look like he's back yet. Um, I would love to see LeBron, obviously. And that's the reason to watch the Lakers and just keep them in is because he still has been awesome this season. But, he's not playing tonight. If he's limited on the ankle, this team isn't doing anything, obviously.
Mhm.
I think at this point, their fans are probably rooting for them to fall out of the play in game.
I mean, dude, they
It's
got
crazy to think about, but
look at it this way. The Lakers have, I mean, like you're saying, they're getting wrecked by the Mavericks right now. They have the Jazz on Thursday, Pelicans Friday, Nuggets, Suns, Warriors, Thunder, which is a winnable one, and then Nuggets. Like that, in my mind, they could, in theory, only win one of those games, maybe two if they beat the Pelicans. And that all will depend on whether or
yeah.
not LeBron's there or not. They could literally only have two more wins coming this season, and you might get your wish then, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you look at them and the way it's going. I mean, I just there's not that. And again, not even that the Spurs are so much better to watch necessarily. Like, I love Deontay Murray, obviously, but they've been kind of up and down. But at least it feels like they're playing better basketball at this point. I mean, they won
Mhm.
4 straight on the road. Um, it was interesting because the Spurs it kind of looked dead in the water at the beginning of March. They had that 4-game losing streak. They beat the Lakers, and then traded wins and losses. But
Mhm.
ever since that loss to New Orleans, again they've ripped off 4 straight against Golden State, Portland, New Orleans, and Houston. They've got Portland twice. Again, Golden State, the way they're playing right now, doesn't look super fearsome. Besides that, you've got Memphis, Minnesota, and Dallas, all which will be tough games. Uh, they have an easier schedule to me than the Lakers, and with only being a half game back, and with the Lakers looking like they're going to lose that half game tonight against Dallas, pending some crazy turnaround here, San Antonio might be in the driver's seat, which is crazy to think about. But I would rather see them play the Pelicans in the first round for sure,
Mhm. Yeah. No, I
or the
completely agree.
play-in.
It would be cool to see Pop, if has he said this is his last year? I feel like I read that somewhere. Maybe I'm just crazy. But, if it is, it would be cool to see him do one last kinda run at a playoff type vibe type thing. And I'd rather see that than a mangled Lakers team try to do something, you know?
They're just not doing anything. Like, the
That's what I
Lakers are
mean.
just bad. Like, they're bad. They're bad basketball team. They're not fun to watch. Like, LeBron is the only reason to watch that basketball team right now. And if LeBron's not fully healthy, again, turn the ankle the other night, we're just kind of out of luck. And there isn't the reason to watch there. Um, I mean, again, I think it goes without saying that Memphis is the team to me that can push Phoenix the most. Is there anybody else do you think that can remotely hang in the Western Conference, or is this just Phoenix is to win?
Yeah, what maybe yeah, you said Memphis. I
I think Memphis is their biggest challenge by
Yeah,
far.
Memphis is their biggest challenge, and then maybe after that, it's Luca if the Warriors aren't there. If the Warriors aren't healthy with Curry, maybe?
I mean, they have well, I mean, it's him and Jokic. Like, if I guess
Well,
I'm talking about
yeah.
the best players in the conference,
Okay,
it's
hold on, but here's
after.
my here's my question with Jokic, because there's a lot of that the MVP stuff just came back, and Jokic is gonna, at least from the look of it, the polls, Jokic had more votes. Say the Nuggets fall to the 7. So, like, the Timberwolves get above them. It's only 2 games? Yeah, 2 games. Maybe. There's a weird percentage part of it. So, it's a few games, whatever. Um, Say they get down to the 7th seed, and then they have to play the Clippers in the play-in tournament and lose. I know the playoffs aren't supposed to be a part of MVP voting, but I feel like there could be an argument to say if Jokic is in the play-in tournament and gets bounced, then it should be Embiid's award.
No, I don't think that because it's not a playoff award. That's the thing.
Yeah, but, like,
Um,
can you give MVP to a guy who didn't make the playoffs? In this scenario, I know he's probably going to, but in this scenario, if he doesn't make the playoffs.
I mean, yeah, I still can. They won as many games as the Sixers have,
I
basically, and
know.
they've done it without Jamal Murray and Michael Porter. Like, I want Embiid to win the award as a Sixers fan. Like, I genuinely am rooting for him to win the award. I also don't think he's going to. Like, I'm
Yeah.
interested with that because I read that straw poll today too, and I'm surprised that it shifted so much in the last 6 weeks. Like, I don't really know what's made a difference here in the past 6 weeks. To me, that it's just been a microcosm of the
You know what it
season.
is? Oh, no, I can tell you exactly what it is. The Sixers added Harden.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's that too. The narrative for sure of
Yeah.
them, because I think the Embiid narrative was that, oh, he's doing it without Ben Simmons, he's keeping this team relevant, and
That's
he was. And of
Jokic's.
course,
That's Jokic's argument is who else is, the star-wise, the guy for Denver.
well, it's just that if the numbers, a lot of them skew to Jokic too. The
Yeah.
advanced numbers
Oh,
do
I
lean
know.
his
Yeah.
way. Um, like, here's my thing, because there's always been this rivalry of sorts, which is hilarious because they never play each other basically. But there's been this, I mean, really the way the last two MVPs have gone to this rivalry between Jokic fans and Embiid fans. Like,
Yeah.
this is an extremely close matchup. Like, I think this is not a runaway by any means of the picture. I think both of these guys would do extremely well if you put them in each other's respective scenario. I do think because they've had missed those guys all season long that Jokic is going to win the award. Like, it's hard. I'm hard pressed to not give Jokic the award when he hasn't played without his two best players, has somehow elevated his game even more, has elevated everybody around him, and the fact that they've won 45 games. Like, the Sixers have won 46 games, so they're one ahead of them now in that competition. But, again, getting Harden back in the lineup, and I don't know, like, if the Sixers were missing Ben Simmons and I guess at the beginning of the year, like Tobias Harris or Tyrese Maxey, it'd be a different story. And I think Embiid is right there too. Like, I'm not saying this is a runaway award, but I,
Mhm.
I do think Jokic is going to win the MVP. And at that point, you got to start talking about, like, I mean, we talk about where he is in the top 10 now, but I mean, two straight MVPs is some rarefied air there for Nikola Jokic.
I agree. And that's why I think, it's so close that if some crazy thing happens where the Timberwolves are able to pass them in the standings and they go into a play-in tournament against Paul George, who's now, healthy and able to drop, say he's dropping 20 a game or something, and they end up beating him in that one game scenario, I think the Embiid diehards trying to push him for the MVP can start howling a little louder, saying like, "Look, man, you can't give the MVP to a guy who got bounced in a play-in tournament," you know? And that's no hate to Jokic because I think I'm with you. I think that's not going to happen, and I think he's going to win the award. He might win the award even if that does happen, but you know, I think there would be a more of a case because it's close that if that were to happen, somebody could start getting a little loud with it.
Oh yeah, 100%. I to me in the straw poll, if anything, it was more interesting to watch the bottom of that award, like in the 4 and 5 spot, for example, because I think everybody pretty universally on their ballot has Jokic and Embiid at 1 and 2,
Yeah.
and then Giannis at 3. And then the question is like, who do you have in that 4? I think at one point it was probably like DeRozan and Ja Morant. But it was interesting. I mean, there's been a lot of talk for Devin Booker recently. Like you saw John
Yep.
Morant on Twitter saying that Book needs to be, there should be more talked about that. Booker was talking about the criteria changing and all that, and how
Well,
he thinks he's being slighted a little bit.
I agree with that, but again, you know, I guess we don't know what would have happened or what Phoenix would look like without him on the court. But I think it's kind of like the Harden situation that we were just talking about with Embiid. I know Chris Paul wasn't on the court for a little bit there, but he had Chris Paul too, And so I think there was kind of like not that they cannibalize each other, but it's like, all right, well, who's the guy right now? Is it Booker or is it Paul? And so I think that kind of hurts his narrative as well.
Well, yeah, I think to me it's how good the Suns are. I mean, even when they
Yeah.
didn't have Booker or Chris Paul, they're still winning
That's what I
games with
mean.
Ayton and
Yeah.
Mikal Bridges. So I think, yeah, that's what hurts his narrative. I mean, Devin Booker's been awesome all season. Like he should
But
absolutely be in the conversation. But yeah, he doesn't have that over the
same thing
top
with Ja.
three remotely to me.
Same thing with Ja. When he was out, they don't even seem to falter. You know what I mean?
No,
Like the guys
they're
around him.
like 15 and 2 with that, which is
That's what I
insane,
mean.
by the way. Like
Yeah.
that's absolutely ridiculous. And to me, like that shouldn't take away from what Ja's done this season. Like I think John Morant should be in the MVP discussion. I think the person that's been climbing that's kind of taken him out of it a little bit, at least recently, is Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum, the way
Yes.
that he's elevated his
Yes.
game and the way that they've turned it around since January and been such a force to get back in the Eastern Conference like this. I mean, and story wise, he's got the narrative as well. Because the Celtics were dead in the water at the beginning of the new year. Like they were going nowhere fast. They had nothing positive going for them. Credit Udoka and the coaching staff, and
Mhm.
credit the guys for adjusting to their roles a little bit and succeeding and thriving here.
I'm telling you right now, by the way, there's point 0.2 left in this game, and it is tied 118-118 Bucks 76ers, and I'm like low key freaking out. It's like
I can't. Well, it's funny. Like I can't believe that the Sixers blew the lead. They were winning most of this.
they let the
Uh,
Bucks drop 37 in the fourth. Don't even get me started.
yeah, it's crazy.
I'm just kind of hoping we get a little update here. I was trying to hopefully we could get it at the end of the podcast, but dude, I, I'm just watching this little feed thing and just feverishly trying to update it to see what happens. So we might
it's
be going
crazy.
into overtime.
It's crazy with the Bucks because I don't think this version of the Bucks is as good as the one that won the title last year. But it
Yeah.
just doesn't matter when you have Giannis. Like that's the thing is like Giannis is so good that he basically can carry you. And on any given night, if he decides to be the best player in the world, like he's going to. What are you laughing about?
This is not an endorsement for this app, but the real app, have you ever been on it? It's like it kind of shows the game feed and people can have comments as they're going. And so Embiid had the game tying put back dunk, and the guy's first response is still not my MVP. It's just like people are just trolling on there. And then Harden, with like 5 seconds left, he missed a three at one point, and they were just like, "He's so trash, bro." It's
Yeah.
just funny watching the reactions on the app. Like people are just trying to troll each other.
So everyone on Twitter is going crazy about something that Giannis did right now. I don't know
No.
what happened. Um,
They have the ball
they
still, at least according to this.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
trying to figure out the score. I probably should
it's
have flipped
like
this on right
live
now.
live broadcasting as a podcast as you listen to this a day later. So you'll know how this is gonna go and whether or not we're about to be very disappointed in about 2 seconds left
I
in
think
this
I
game.
think I think they won. I think that Embiid block. I don't know if it's 118 or 18 or maybe it
It
was a
got
tie
blocked.
game
Oh
and
yeah, they're
Embiid.
saying it got. Oh, they're goaltending is what they're thinking. Clean block or
No. So
goaltending.
that's what it was. Embiid
Oh,
they called a goaltend, but Giannis got it clean. So Giannis won. Giannis probably just won the game defensively.
yeah, because we just went back
Um,
down to 116. Oh my
man,
god, I'm so disappointed.
that is crazy. I mean, here's the thing with the Sixers. Like, I don't really care necessarily about losing the game tonight. it's the Sixers lost, but it's just again, it's Doc Rivers, man. It's the depth and it's Doc Rivers. Like Doc Rivers stinks. I can't say like the fact that Paul Reed can't get minutes in this lineup when DeAndre Jordan and Paul Millsap are just like literally the Walking Dead at this point
Yeah.
it's insane, and it's going to cost the Sixers. Like, there's a sick, sadistic part of me that wants the Sixers to lose in the first round, so they fire Doc Rivers.
If they go up against the Nets, and it is James Harden versus Kyrie Irving, and Kyrie Irving just blanket guards him again like we had the last time they played, and we don't have any kind of anything to free him up, to get him away, to help him, I'm gonna be so pissed off. So that's my 2 cents. And that does come back down to a Doc thing. So, here we are. Just lost the
Yeah.
game, 118 to 116. So now I'm disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. They just blocked it. I'm about to pull this up real quick. I want to see it. I don't know if the sound will come through.
If you can share the screen on the app, it should pull it up. If you want to try to.
All right, here we go. Hang on. Let me see. Yeah, here. Let me. I have this right now. Let me share real quick.
Yeah, it should. At the bottom corner of it, it should let you share the audio if you wanted to.
Okay, here's the window. Yep. Okay, here we go.
I'll let you know if I
This is
see.
real good audio, by the way.
Well, from the podcasting standpoint, we can clean it up. From the YouTube video, they're just gonna have to deal with it.
Oh, all right. So there's a Chrome thing saying it doesn't have permission to access my screen right now. So we got a lot of things to clean up on my end. I am gonna watch this live. Where are we looking? So Harden is okay.
Here it's game tie. Oh, call it. Here it is. Hold on, I got it.
Okay. Oh, we blocked it off the glass. Okay, so Embiid had a layup, had a putback, and Giannis got a clean off the block. It's huge for the Bucks. Yeah, it's a big win for them. They're now in sole possession of second. Chicago did win. They ended up beating the Wizards by 13. Brooklyn's up 3 on Detroit right now. So now live. So the Bucks are in full possession of 2. Boston actually moves to 3 without playing. The Sixers have a game in hand. So the Sixers are behind Boston right now, but the Sixers have a game in hand. They played 1 less.
Mm-hmm.
So as it falls now, the Sixers, Chicago got their half game back up on Toronto. Toronto has the game in hand, and then Cleveland is a game and a half back of Chicago for 5.
I think I got the block right here.
You probably got it.
Let's see.
Get it over in regulation, so
get
the shot you want, something going to the cup.
Okay. Pick and roll kind of. No, maybe not. Oh, he's just going in for it.
Off the mark, Embiid the rebound, blocked near the cup.
It's just crazy. Like, it's just a great block.
Giannis just had a good block. He's got some long. Oh, and he's doing the no.
Well, I think he's saying because of the goaltending. Yeah. They called goaltending.
Hard to hear the whistle because
they ended up having a review. Blood challenge.
Oh, now they're talking. You see them talking to each other there.
The ruling of goaltending is being reviewed.
Let's see.
Joel with a great inside position. Ooh,
yeah,
I
clean.
don't know.
That
looked like a clean block from that
angle.
Clean.
That's definitely not a goal. That's
clean. Yeah.
Yep.
Got it. I mean, that's all I need. Just got him. Good timing.
Should have just dunked it. Should have just dunked it.
Huh?
Should have just dunked it.
I'm low key not even worried about it. I kind of want them to get. I kind of want the 4 seed.
I love it. We're being evil and trying to tank for the 4 seed.
I am being evil. I want the 4 seed. They get the 4 seed, they're going to win. If they get Miami at 1, I think they maybe can go on a conference final. But like I said, I don't know what I want because I also want them to fire Doc Rivers too. I think that's the one thing I want. I want the Sixers to fire Doc Rivers. That would make me the happiest.
Make it the first time. You win the conference finals and fire your coach.
God, never mind. Doc Rivers is the most overrated coach in NBA history. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Driving Dish NBA podcast. We appreciate you guys. As always, leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. Read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find us.
Yep, and be sure to follow us on YouTube so you can watch us try to figure out this video stuff when we're trying to share screens and everything. And be subscriber number 35.
Yeah, get that Kevin Durant spot.